Apologize for being just a minute late here. Monsieur Mélan, I know after many attempts, it's good to have you here today.
Pleasure.
I know you'll have some opening comments. If you'd please like to start with those, introduce your guests you have with you today, and then we'll do some rounds of questioning after that.
Okay. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for inviting me to discuss the main estimates for 2014-15 for my office. I'm accompanied by Mr. Hugues Saint-Pierre, Chief Financial and Planning Officer, Mr. Belaina de Geffe, Deputy Chief Electoral Officer of Integrated Services, Policy and Public Affairs, and Mr. Michel Roussel, Deputy Chief Electoral Officer responsible for electoral events. Prior to discussing my office's report on plans and priorities, I wish to remind the committee that at the time of preparing our main estimates, Bill C-23 had yet to be introduced. As a consequence, the priorities outlined in the report will need to be reviewed and adjusted. We will also review our operating budget and draw on the statutory authority to deal with additional expenditures that may be required. In the fall, I would like to appear before the committee again to give you more information on our progress in implementing the new provisions of the Canada Elections Act, as well as key changes for the next general election in this new operating context, and on our initial budget estimates for that election. As we continue our preparations, I would like to underline my commitment and that of my staff to implementing the provisions of the Act in a timely and effective manner. Today, the committee is studying our annual appropriation, which is $30.5 million. This represents the salaries of approximately 350 full-time equivalent employees. Combined with our statutory authority, which funds all other expenditures under the Canada Elections Act, our main estimates for 2014-15 are $97.1 million. This is an $18.7 million decrease from our 2013-2014 main estimates. There are three reasons for this decrease: the phasing out of quarterly allowances to political parties, which is $7.4 million, the completion of the main components of our office consolidation project, which is $9.3 million, and the conclusion of the redistribution of electoral districts, which is $2.5 million decrease. The major focus of my office for this fiscal year will be implementing preparatory work and mobilizing our resources to achieve a state of full election readiness for an election called after April 2015. In preparation for a 2015 general election, we are improving the services required for voters. This includes implementing the provisions of Bill C-23. Our overall objectives are to ensure the integrity of the conduct of elections and make it easier for Canadians to register and vote. I would like to explain some of this work in more detail.
The 2013 Compliance Review Report, we are planning additional administrative measures to improve compliance with Elections Day procedures. These include improved recruitment practices, modernized training, and when possible, simplified procedures and clearer instructions for election workers. Record-keeping errors occur when election officers handle exceptions, such as voters whose names do not appear on the list. To address this issue, we will pursue measures to ensure that we have the most accurate and current voter list possible on Election Day. This year, Elections Canada will introduce a new voter registration system. This system will combine a new online registration service with a new approach to revising the voters list during an election, one that targets polling divisions known for high volume of polling day registration, and will promote voter registration among first-time electors. To make this possible, my office has invested in developing a secure national voter database that can be updated in real time by returning officers and electors themselves during an election. We are also making improvement to the Electoral Reminder Program, which is our multimedia advertising and information campaign for elections. It delivers information to electors on where, when, and how to register and vote, and how to provide their identity and address. For the next general election, information will be provided in a wide variety of new formats. There will be frequent reminders to ensure that Canadians know how to register and know their options for voting on Election Day, at advance poll, by mail, or at their local Elections Canada's office. One important focus will be on reaching electors before the issue of the writs, through targeted promotion of online registration to reduce registration at the poll. I have provided members with a handout that summarizes the goal of the program, the channel we will use to connect with electors, and the general timing of its rollout. Finally, we will offer increased specialty communications for people with varying abilities, such as products in Braille or large print, open and closed captioned videos, and specialty audio broadcasts. As well, our website will describe the accessibility of individual polling sites. We will also continue to provide information in numerous Aboriginal and heritage languages. Another priority this fiscal year will be, of course, to implement the new provisions of the Act resulting from Bill C-23. I will mention only two aspects today. First, Bill C-23 moves the Commissioner of Canada election from our agency to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. My officials have initiated discussion with that office for the transfer of the Commissioner and his staff. Second, Bill C-23 requires the Chief Electoral Officer to issue non-binding guidelines and interpretation notes, as well as written opinions, on the application of the Act to registered parties and association, nomination contestant, candidates, and leadership contestants. We plan to convene the Advisory Committee of Political Parties in the fall to determine an approach and forward agenda for addressing these provisions. I intend to use this opportunity to formalize the committee's role as an advisory body to the Chief Electoral Officer. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My colleague and I are happy to answer questions that the committee may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Menon. Well, I'll go to Mr. Reid for 7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your final comment brings me to the question I had meant to raise anyway, which is this. The Commissioner of Canada Elections will, assuming Bill C-23 becomes the law of the land, gets through the other place and gets royal assent, will move to the Director of Public Prosecution's office, and with him he'll take not only his personnel but obviously the financial needs necessary to deal with core funding. I'm aware that he receives funding for investigations directly out of the Consolidated Revenue Fund, but he has core funding, which I gather from his report, I'm actually a little uncertain of this, I'm asking this question, amounts to the salary of his indeterminate, six indeterminate employees, and is a total of $541,000. Is that right, or is there a larger amount associated with his ongoing expenses?
Yeah, there's a larger amount. The amount that has been identified right now is $1.3 million to cover the salary of 14 individuals, full-time employees.
Okay, so I don't know how you dealt with this in your submission. Did you subtract that amount out of because it would have been part, I assume, of what a budget envelope that came to you? You've taken it out?
It will be reduced next year.
Okay.
Yes, as soon as this comes into place, yes.
All right, thank you. That's very helpful. And thank you for being conscientious about that. I wanted to turn to, if I could, one of the issues that arises naturally as we deal with the Commissioner moving over. We have to look at his budget. We have to try and anticipate how much he is going to need, both in terms of the those employees and the standing budget, but also the investigations that he conducts. And I wanted to ask, with regard to this, in his report, he submitted a report last September. He states on page 7 that his investigations were driven from two sources. Number one, complaints from the public and from political entities. He cites in the fiscal year 2012, ending March 31st last year, 37 complaints from the public and political entities. Also, 210 referrals from within Elections Canada. I am assuming that that effectively means that your office is being responsible for all 210 of those. You find some kind of issue and you
So these issues would have related to political finance matters, yes.
Right, okay. And he gives as well on page 9 of his report a list of the caution letters he issued, 47 caution letters, which he breaks down by who they went to, how many went to official agents, how many went to electoral districts, associations, contributors, and so on. And then on the next page he deals with compliance agreements, of which there were 2 in that year. This is, to the best of my knowledge, the only reporting we've ever had, and I stand to be corrected, but I believe this is the only reporting we've ever had on what the nature of these orders, agreements, and so on are. Is there any other publicly available source of information that you've made available, or he, over the course of the period that you've served in this role, that would aid us in knowing what has been done and to what degree, how many such agreements?
Yes. In terms of charges being laid under the Act, that's available on our website. In terms of compliance agreement, they are also published. In fact, these are also published in the Canada Gazette, but are available on our website. In terms of the reference and complaints, the data on these would be found either in the election report following the GE, or found in the RDPR, annual report.
So I would be able to find out, if I were to consult your annual reports from previous years, the for example, the report for the relevant period, I would be able to find out about the 210 referrals broken down by what section of the Act is being was thought to perhaps have been contravened.
I would have to look at it again. I'm not sure it's broken down. There's aggregate numbers provided.
Right.
Again, this report from the Commissioner was a first. It's something that he intended to perform annually so that there be a little bit more better information about his activities and the outcomes of his activities.
Right. I'm very grateful he did it. Is there any breakdown as to some of the things that would seem to me to be reasonable to be concerned about, to see which parts of the Act the referrals were given for each of the relevant years, which parties and candidates were found to or were thought to have violated the Act, so that we could take a look and see how that splits out? Is that available?
We could certainly produce it. If that's the desire of the committee, we can produce that information.
I for one,
we can build it. We can build it in our performance report, annual performance report.
Okay, I for one would be very grateful if you would put it in your reports in the future, and if you're able to give it for the past few years, I don't know, say the past 5, just to give us an idea of where you believe there have been problems, which parts of the Act, and who you think has caused it. I want to turn finally, in my last minute, Mr. Chair, to the question of one particular very substantial repayment of funds that took place. This was the a repayment of $347,000 by the New Democratic Party for funds they'd received from unions over the course of 3 conventions. They complied with an order from you to do so, but it seems clear from the fact that they had correspondence with you going back several years that you must have been aware that they were in non-compliance with the Act. So I'm just wondering, in that kind of situation, do you only act when you receive a complaint externally? Do you never refer potential violations of that sort unless they're referred by an outside source?
No, I think if we can detect it, we will act on it like any other matters. Sometimes matters are brought to our attention through complaints or sometimes through media report, which I think in this case came out from a media report in the U.S. Initially.
A letter from Arthur Hamilton.
Yeah, and we looked into it.
Thanks. Your 7 minutes is up.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
I'm going to Mr. Christopherson. Did you have a point of order?
I'm not sure if it's a real point of order, but I'm going to look. No, I'm going to look for UC here from the committee. I just got a notification. I'm sure my colleagues' offices have that bells will start ringing at 11:40. This would be about the 3rd or 4th time I think the bells have interrupted Mr. Miron's testimony. So I'm suggesting, and I'd like to get UC if the committee agrees. We're only 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes from the chamber, and Mr. Miron's only here for an hour. So even though the bells may start at 11:40, can we agree to continue on for the full hour and then go down to the chamber?
Agreed. Kevin? Yeah. We're all okay on that? Wow, that's the first time on UC. Very good. We're getting better. And after the lecture we just got from the Deputy Speaker, we best all be in our chairs. Mr. Christopherson for 7 minutes.
If we can remember this goodwill later,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Yes.
Yeah, at the risk of blowing up all this great kumbaya, first thing I'd like to do is serve notice of a motion that the Standing Committee on Procedure and House Affairs conduct a study into the provisions of services to the House of Commons Liberal Caucus out of resources of the Senate of Canada in contravention of the members' bylaws of the House of Commons since the 2011 election, excuse me, and that in preparation for these hearings, the Liberal Research Bureau provide to the committee all organizational charts, all employment records, with personal information redacted, of course, and all the briefing materials which were produced by employees of the Senate of Canada and then distributed to the Liberal House of Commons caucus. So that serves as notice. That's Great. Just notice, Chair, and we'll deal with that at the appropriate time. Mr. Mayran, I'd like to deal right off the top with recent media reports regarding investigations that you may or may not be currently conducting. And certainly if you read some of the media, you would be left with the impression that the NDP is specifically under investigation. And yet, when we look at the recent letter that you sent to the Speaker, there isn't the word investigation nor NDP there. So I would ask you, sir, as much as you can, in light of you have confidentiality around your procedures of investigation. So with respect and as much as you can, I would ask you whether or not it is indeed specifically only the NDP that is under some kind of investigation. Are you looking at the mailing system itself and therefore all the parties, or is indeed there nothing going on and everybody should move along, there's nothing here to see? Perhaps you could help clarify, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just want to clarify that I do not carry investigation. That's the sole exclusive responsibility of the Commissioner of Canada's election. I've been contacted. I've received correspondence twice from the Board of Internal Economy regarding matters of using of parliamentary resources. I've indicated in one letter that as far as we are concerned, the material that was provided was released prior to the issue of the writ, therefore are not, according to our long-standing interpretation there, are not election expenses. I received a second letter indicating that to look at a broader issue of use of franking privilege that may have constituted I believe, contributions from the point of view, I'm talking out of memory on the letter. Both of these letters were copied to the Commissioner, and as well as my response to those letters. I indicated in the first letter, again, the matter did not, in my view, based on the information provided, did not fall under the purview of the Elections Act. In the second matter, I indicated to the Board of Internal Economy that it could raise potential serious issues as to the interface of the rule of the House and the Canada Elections Act. And in that regard, that we would engage discussion with House officials to discuss how we can harmonize those rules if possible. And that I will be issuing, probably, it's going to be one of the first guidelines that I will be issuing in the new Act at some point of time, as hopefully to clarify how parliamentary resources use can interact with the Canada Elections Act. And I think it's particularly important now that we're moving into a fixed date regime that this rule should be as clear as possible.
Very good. Chair, if you don't mind, I'll share the rest of my time with my colleague, Madame Latendresse.
Latendresse, please.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Méran.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Méran, for being here today. I have a few specific questions about what you have just said. I would also like to come back to your report of 2014 complaints. In that report, you indicated that there was a need to reinforce the electoral process, especially with the addition of 30 new ridings. You were saying that that was going to force you to review your operating budget for 2014-2015. Could you give us some more details as to what those kinds of changes will look like? And overall, what are those budget changes going to affect exactly? We're still analyzing the operational impact of the new legislation. What I'm proposing today is that we will come back before the committee this fall in order to provide you with an impact analysis and to present all of the financial consequences. I would like to come before the committee to explain how we are going to implement the new provisions under the law and present at least a preliminary budget for the next financial year. Many factors are going to influence that besides the Elections Act. There are different factors that influence the budget, and so we'll have to calculate the implementation costs of C23, among other things. But I cannot suggest any numbers right now. My question had more to do with the 30 new MPs. Could you tell us exactly? I don't have an estimate right now, but that's before the addition of C23. These are 30 new ridings that are going to have to be added on. It's going to be $9.2 million. I have some questions on C23 and the way in which you are going to plan the next budget. With the coming election and the new changes that have been implemented, can you tell us, according to you, what is the most serious financial impact that C23 is going to have? What are the financial impacts going to be? What's going to be the most complicated aspect of that? We know that there's going to be an additional anticipated vote day. There's a cost associated with that. Approximately $3.2 to $3.4 million. That's a preliminary figure. We'll have to refine those numbers. I also want to be able to discuss with the committee the statutory requirement of providing independent verification after the election. There are some questions as to the extent of the audit, and that's going to have an impact on the costs of that procedure, which can be relatively expensive depending on the methodology and the scope used for those audits. I believe that it would be important for me to benefit from the committee's input before making any decisions on that matter, and I would like to submit that to you next fall. Thank you.
7 minutes, please.
Mr. Chair, I want to follow up a line of some questioning from Mr. Christophas and give you a hypothetical example, Mr. Mirand. Let's say if a local company that is incorporated wanted to support me and as such sent out a letter to homes in my area promoting me as and asking people to donate money towards me and my party. It's important to note that prior to doing the mailer, I was asked if it was okay about what they were going to do, and I responded by saying yes, and then went on to thank them. A few weeks later, the mailings were completed, and a concerned citizen brings this matter to the attention of Elections Canada. How would Elections Canada resolve what would in fact be an illegal contribution?
Well, that involves certain expenditures that are done by the third party, so you have to look at whether these constitute non-monetary contributions. Should they be found to be non-monetary contribution, the candidate or the party or the association will have to return any excess amount to the receiver general.
So if the mailings were found to be inappropriate, then the candidate or the party or the person in question would have to reimburse?
Would have to reimburse the value of the non-monetary contribution that exceeds the limit of $1,200.
So first, it would be wrong or illegal for a company to do this, correct?
It depends how much a company spends on the matter. It's a corporation, of course, they can't make contribution.
So if they spend thousands of dollars to send out a mailer...
In fact, any money spent by a corporation that constitutes a contribution is illegal. So corporation cannot make contribution.
Okay, so that means in order to rectify the issue, I would be responsible then as the candidate or the political entity to reimburse that money?
If it's a non-monetary contribution,
yes.
The value of the contribution would have to be returned to the receiver general. If it's a cash contribution or a money contribution, it would have to be returned to the contributor.
Right.
And the candidate, association, or party has 30 days to do so.
Okay. Now, we're very much aware of this massive, you're aware of it, you've made reference to it, this massive 1.8 million pieces of literature that went across the country, paid for by the taxpayers. In a situation of that nature, if it is found to be inappropriate, as the House administration has indicated that it is inappropriate, what should then be the consequence?
I think we're looking into matters that's already being brought to my attention. As I indicated earlier, we are dealing with officials from the House as to how we can harmonize the rule. On another level, I think political parties, candidates have to file returns, and it is that at that point that the matters will be raised.
So, given the relationship with the commissioners of the elections, it's fair to say that the commissioner is in fact aware of this and would be expected to be looking into the matter?
There's been, again, correspondence between the Board of Internal Economy and myself has been shared with the Commissioner.
Sure. Now, has the Commissioner responded to your office, to the best of your knowledge? Is this
anything from the Commissioner? It's his sole exclusive jurisdiction to determine what course of action to take with any matter that comes to his attention.
Okay. Can you give some sort of an indication in terms of do you have the resources necessary? What sort of a time frame would we be looking at? Like, how does the public get a better appreciation that some sort of consequence or justice is being resolved? As in this particular issue, as I say, we have professional civil servants who have indicated that there is a violation, which would then imply that we're talking about a mailer that should not have gone out, so there should be some form of consequence to it. Like, how does Elections Canada itself fit into it? Or are you completely dependent on the Commissioner to come back and say that, look, what was done was wrong, and now it's your responsibility to come up with a remedy?
There's several aspects. The finding of the House officials are under the rules of the House. Findings from Elections Canada or the Commissioner will have to be under the Elections Act. So these are separate things, and we need to look at how these rules interface. Second thing I would point out is that some of the matters that have been raised will or will not be identified in returns that will be filed by parties or EDAs or candidates. I think some of the matter relates to by-election. We have now received the returns from candidates in previous by-elections. The audit is taking its course, and we'll see what comes out of that process. In parallel, the Commissioner is seized with the matter, and we'll see what he does.
The concerns that I would have, and I suspect many Canadians would have, would be that bulk mass mailing of 1.8 million pieces throughout the country, and concerns that have been raised from the administration that in fact it was inappropriate, that the rules were in fact broken. To what degree does Elections Canada then say, well, look, a rule has been broken, now we have to come up with a remedy? Does Elections Canada take upon itself to ensure that some form of remedy is taken?
Again, the ruling, if it's a ruling that was issued, and I'm not privy to it, but whoever issued that ruling is responsible for administering the consequences of that ruling. That's not Elections Canada's responsibility. Elections Canada will look at it from the point of view of the Elections Act, and again, if there's been a breach of the Elections Act, proper measures will be taken.
So in this case, it could be having to pay back $1.8 million.
Thank you, Mr.
I don't speculate on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to Mr. Reid. 4-minute round now, please, Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to return to the matter of the illegal contributions received, the $340,000 in illegal contributions received by the New Democratic Party. The contributions are illegal under Section 404, subsection 2 of the Canada Elections Act, which reads inter alia, if a registered party receives a contribution from an ineligible contributor, the chief agent of the registered party shall, within 30 days after becoming aware of the ineligibility, return the contribution unused to the contributor or, if that is not possible, pay the amount of it to the chief electoral officer. I've looked at how these were received. I've, over a period of 3 conventions, a period of a number of years, I've looked at the very limited commercial value associated with the contributions. Basically, it's this billboard at a convention center, and it is hard to believe that any person could have received this money and have accepted seriously that this was full value for money. Therefore, I would contend that the relevant officer or officers of the New Democratic Party were in contravention of Section 404, subsection 2 of the Elections Act. So not only ought the funds to have been received, but it seems to me that a prosecution ought to have occurred for the violation of that section of the Act. They did not return those funds clearly within 30 days of having received, in fact, not even within several years of having received the initial funds, let alone even the last funds. I wonder if I could get your response to that.
The only comment I can make is that the matter of enforcement as the exclusive jurisdiction of the Commissioner. The decision to authorize charges lays with the DPP.
Right, but you refer matters to the Commissioner. You referred, in fact, the bulk of his cases were referred by you. I grant not all of them, but is it not the case that you have the ability, you do have the ability to, you could have referred this to the Commissioner of Elections?
The matter was referred, but the decision as to what to do with the referral lies exclusively with the Commissioner. And the decision to allow charges or not allow charges is the responsibility of the DPP. In the current regime, it will be in the next also.
So the decision to charge or to accept repayment, but to not place the relevant charge under Section 404 sub 2 was then, and to sign a compliance agreement which has not been made public, that was all something that the Commissioner did subsequent to a referral from your office?
Yes.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you very much.
You have about 30 seconds.
I'll just say thank you again.
All right. Madame Latendresse. Great. Thank you.
J'ai toujours des questions.
I always have questions for the Chief Electoral Officer. I would like to come back to a few items that I had started to discuss earlier. You mentioned in your opening statement that one of your priorities was going to be to ensure that your office is ready for an election after April 2015. In your opinion, the reason you mentioned the state is, according to you, because of the new provisions, that would be the earliest possible time at which Elections Canada would be ready to hold general elections. Is that right? Yes, that is indeed a factor. It's an evaluation of the environment, of the time needed to deploy resources or to deploy them before the election is called. As of April, we can be ready to deploy the infrastructure necessary throughout the entire country in order to hold elections. I'm looking at details on the program that you provided. I really like the points on the side with all of the timelines with which the timelines you're going to follow to communicate with electors. I think that that is a very good use of fixed date elections. It's the ability to have a very precise communication plan like this one. I know that the problem of contacting people who are not electors, people who are not 18 years old yet, is still an issue. Yes, we still do not have the authority to collect data on Canadian citizens under 18 years of age. We don't have that information. We do, however, have information on about 647,000 Canadian citizens who still have not agreed to be added to the list of electors. That's the group that we are trying to reach prior to the election writ. When you say that they haven't agreed to be registered, you just mean they're not registered. They're not registered, but we also know who they are and we know where they live. We have information because it was communicated to us by Canada Revenue Agency or by motor vehicle departments or through other agencies. We know that these are voters and we can find them. We communicate with them. Recently, we sent out 400,000 letters to those individuals, but the response rate to that mail-out is very low. To come back to those who are under 18 years of age, do you have any strategies to reach those people to make sure that they are registered? Once again, it's the same principle. We know when the election's going to be. Therefore, we know who's going to be 18 at that time. Are there any strategies available? I don't know who's going to be 18 years old when the elections are held. However, our civic education programs are going to allow us to communicate with young people and with stakeholders in order to emphasize the importance of being registered for elections. Very well. I would like to thank Mr. Méran.
There's 2 spots in a row here, whichever you'd like to take.
2 spots for the Conservative Party?
Yes?
Oh. Well, you can start. I'll go after you.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. Let me start now before I use them all up trying to figure out why that is. Mr. Méran, I wanted to turn to you were before this committee on March 29th, 2012. At that time, we were looking into the question of robocalls, and as everybody recalls, there were 2 separate issues at work here. Issue number 1 was matters going on in Guelph. I'm well aware that these are now before the courts. In fact, I think they're before the courts this very day. And I won't ask you to comment on them. But separately, there was an investigation into the accusation. Turned out to be an entirely unfounded accusation that there had been a widespread nationwide robocalls attempt to mislead voters and guide them to the wrong polling locations. Turned out after the fact that it was actually a group called Move Now that was trying to encourage people to phone in. There were thousands of calls, mostly expressions of concern from concerned or emails. Most of them turned out to be template letters. Nonetheless, this created a media storm over an imaginary scandal. You came before the committee and gave some testimony at that time on the subject. You said at that time, at around 11 a.m., we have added sufficient resources to deal with the inflow of communications and to contact electors who have specific factual allegations. In other words, not the ones for expressing a concern as a Canadian, but those who had specific allegations. And that was subsequently something that was turned over to the commissioner, who reported that, in fact, there were 1,700 actual complainants making 2,448 complaints, a substantial number of which turned out to be an unrelated phishing scam that was confused in the minds of those electors. At any rate, what I wanted to find out is how much actual resources were devoted to this, how many actual dollars wound up being involved.
Back to you on that. I don't have that detailed information today. No? That's 2 fiscal years ago. So I'll be happy to come back to you.
Fair enough. This comes back to the issue of the commissioner's budget versus your budget, now that they're being separated out. Would these have been resources that were allocated from the Consolidated Revenue Fund and that went to the commissioner? If we were to go back and forensically examine it, it
was statutory funds used to recruit individuals to basically deal with the take-in of information that was coming in, making sure that there were proper coordinates for those who were filing complaints and providing that information to the commissioner so that it be assigned to investigators.
Okay.
So it's the incoming, managing the incoming.
Yeah, he gives, in his report, he gives a considerable amount of detail. I think he's trying to demonstrate that he was conscientious, and so he's very thorough in providing information as to how they followed up on which aspects of things. I wonder if it would be possible, given that this was done while he was in your shop, to come up with a breakdown, a total costing for the entire investigative process, and then a breakdown for some of the components thereof. I'm not sure I'm in a position to say to you what those components ought to be, but to give us an idea of what's involved in doing an investigation of this sort. Obviously, intelligent people were involved. Intelligent people are not available at a low price to ensure that there was an obvious demonstration of impartiality. He went to a former justice of the Supreme Court. I think we know how much she was compensated for this.
I think it is available, definitely.
Okay, yeah,
it was published.
Yeah, that's right. So if you could get back with the global budget and a bit of a breakdown of what that was, that would be very, very helpful.
The global was $1.3 million.
$1.3 million.
Yeah. That would include legal services, would include effectively the third-party review. It would include forensic expertise that they needed because there was quite a bit of analysis to do regarding various systems, IT systems. So there was great care in ensuring that ensuring the integrity of the data. So that would be probably the main items, but we can provide more
All right,
detail.
if you could do that, I'd be very, very grateful. Thank you. And that uses up my 4 minutes plus 1.
Okay, there's 3 minutes left for Mr. Butt.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Morin, and your officials for being here today. I want to go back to some of the points that you made in your opening address to us, and I want to talk about some of the cost savings that you have identified. You talked about the phase down of the political party subsidy, that equals a $7.4 million decrease in your budget. Can you just remind the committee again, when exactly does the political party subsidy go down to zero, so that you're no longer providing political party subsidies?
We're currently in the last year.
This is the last year this year? Okay.
I think this year it's roughly another $7 million that will go through another 7.4.
And do you know, at the highest level, when the full subsidies were being paid to all the political parties that were eligible, do you have any idea what that annual number was prior to the changes that we brought forward?
It was roughly, but again, it depends on the number of electors from time to time, number of votes, but it was roughly a little bit over $28 million.
So the Canadian taxpayers are going to save $28 million a year by the end of the political party subsidy program, in essence.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Good. It's great. You talk about the completion of the main components of your office consolidation project, which was a $9.3 million decrease. I actually didn't realize you'd moved from Slater Street. I went to hand deliver my riding association return to you folks a week or 2 weeks ago that my CFO had prepared, and you were gone. So where are you now? And are you in one complete location now, and is that an appropriate location to do all of the services? And given the fact that the commissioner's services will be moving out of your offices and into the public prosecutions, are you satisfied with the location you're in now? Is that sufficient for your operations now? And where exactly are you located now?
30 Victoria in Gatineau.
Okay.
We're using the 5 top floors of that building. Yes, and I hope the committee will come for a visit at some point of time.
That would be nice.
So that we discuss matters of mutual interest.
That would be lovely.
And yes, it does respond to our needs.
Okay. And my last question is, I would assume in a general election year that obviously your budget would be larger than a normal operating year. You talk about 350 full-time equivalent employees. I'm assuming that's in a regular standard year where there might be a few by-elections, riding association returns, other things that you're normally having to do on an annual basis. How does the budget inflate in a general election year? What kind of numbers do we get, if your base budget is 97.1 million, I guess you're showing here in a base year, what would it grow to in a year of a general election? And I guess that's probably my last question.
You'll have.
Thank you.
Okay. Our core operating budget is really roughly close to $60 million. Because in the 97, it includes other costs, which are transfer payments to parties and association and all these things. Aside from that, the cost of an election, the cost of the last election was roughly $290 million. It's now we have to, again, as I mentioned to the committee, we need to factor in a few variables now, and I'd like to come back to the committee to propose an initial budget in the fall.
That's a great idea. Mr. Butt, thank you very much, and I'm sure they'll be happy to have you drop by any time now that you know where the office is. Mr. Scott, for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Meran, for coming again to the committee. I just wanted to ask a couple questions around, or maybe flag that I hope when you come in the fall, you might be able to address the following question. Some of the concerns coming out of the Bill C-23 were that we might end up with some unexpected bottlenecks and challenges at the polls. Voter information cards will no longer be able to be used. It could be that we end up with even more vouching in 2015 than we had in 2011. Vouching for address has been restored. It's in the new bill, but people will not be able to show proof of address with the voter information card. It's reasonable to assume a number of people might well need to be vouched for more than was even the case in 2011. So that takes resources, it takes training, and there could potentially be bottlenecks in areas where that's most likely. The second thing is that the Bill C-23 includes the right of scrutineers effectively to challenge, to see but not handle identification, with very unclear rules about what happens when they don't like what they see. There is a practice in certain jurisdictions for that to be aggressively used as a right by scrutineers, and it can create lineups. So I'm hoping that Elections Canada can take into consideration these kinds of scenarios in planning their budget, and I'd be grateful for any information on that in the fall. If you have any comments now, that's fine, but otherwise it's just a request for the future. We are looking at all aspects of how we operationalize the new legislation. You've mentioned some of them. With regard to the examination of pieces of ID, we will probably have to issue, not sure yet, whether it's an instruction to poll workers or a guideline under the new act to make sure that the vote is not disrupted. On issues of, and again, I will come back in the fall on these matters. How can we alleviate, are there administrative measures that can reinforce the objective of the legislation at the same time smoothing the administrative process? Thank you. And one last thing on, this is not technically, I realize it doesn't cost, it's just a little bit more ink. But one of the issues that came up in the amendments phase of C-23 was, given that we in opposition and the official opposition had lost the fight to retain the voter information cards, we were greatly concerned that the 900,000 people officially authorized to use them in a number of settings in 2011 will well remember that and not necessarily know that the rules have changed. We moved for an amendment to have the VIC prominently stamped with a very, very clear message to say this cannot be used, it's an aid, etc. Now, yeah, so the question, the question is, can we possibly make sure that however prominent it is or isn't now, that it's very prominent, because it will cause confusion? It's already there in bold and in color, but we'll see.
Exactly, but the point is that people will remember. So please make sure the message is not, the message that's written there is actually a tiny bit ambiguous about whether or not it can be used for voting. The last thing is, Mr. Reid made some very good points during committee about when the VIC is issued.
At what stage of finality is the list that generates the VIC? Is the final list that Elections Canada produces during an election the basis for generating VICs, or is it a previous version? And can the VICs be issued later in the list making process?
That's very technical. The VIC are based on the preliminary list, as well as revisions that occur during the election. So electors will get the VIC. The list closed, or the revision closed basically on day 6, which is after advance poll. So there's a few days left to prepare the final list that will be used at the poll. Those who are not on that list still have the option to register at the poll. And that's where we want to target our efforts to try to better inform electors of the importance of registering prior to polling day.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, I had Mr. Lukiski, but Mr. Reid, you want to?
Just, if you don't mind, very briefly.
Okay.
If you take a look at the Commissioner's report into the summary investigation report on robocalls, he deals with this exact question. What do you do when information comes out on a VIC, which is, here's actually, it's slightly different. It's not the identity of the person who got down incorrectly. It's that the poll got moved as a result of a flood or a fire or that kind of thing. You can read what he has to say. He's, as is usual with his reports, very businesslike and intelligent, but it just raises the point that these things are imperfect instruments for a variety of reasons.
Thank you. Mr. Lukiski, you want to finish his time? Or?
Yeah, it wasn't actually anything for Monsieur Meron. It was merely for the benefit of the committee, since we will be departing here shortly. And I'm not sure if you set aside any time for committee business. Are we coming back here after votes? Is there any other business, or do we adjourn?
As you know, I take my guidance from the committee on things like that. So we did have some committee business set aside for today. If you wanted to come back after votes, we could do it. If not, we can deal with it on Tuesday when we return. Mr. Reid?
Were we not going to have the clerk here today?
No.
Unavailable.
She's not available today, so.
When is she available?
Mid-July.
Mid-July. You said at the earliest.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think even Audrey knows when she's going to be.
Okay.
Before we finish this, we still have our guests with us. So, Alexander, you had one quick question. I'll let you have it real fast, and then we'll move on, and
Absolument.
we'll thank our guests for being here and invite them back in the fall.
J'ai une petite question, en fait.
I have a quick little question. When we had Bill C-21, you said in committee that there was a problem with the fact that there was a common limit for loans and donations. Under C-23, the limit was increased to 1,500, but C-21 had it integrated throughout. That's the case that loans and donations have the same ceiling. Do you have any mechanisms to be able to manage that? Because I don't have the exact quote, but I remember you said that it could create a lot of problems. It raises administrative problems for Elections Canada as well as for political entities. If there was a loan of $1,500 and $300 were repaid, that means that they can now contribute $300. That means we have to carefully follow the movement of the loan and contributions in order to ensure that they do not at any time go over the $1,500 limit. We're looking at that aspect right now to determine what kind of system we're going to implement. It's going to be very difficult for political entities as well. Thank you.
Discuss on your return in the fall if we can set that up. So thank you. I thank our guests. Thank you, Mr. Meron. We'll see you. We'll work together to have you back here in the fall and discuss some of the future planning.
Yes.
Oh, we're going to discuss that now.
Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much. Yeah, so the answer now I need from the group is, are we returning after votes or for committee business, or are we not? Sorry, one at a time. Mr. Lukowski, then Mr. Lamoureux, and quite quickly, please.
Yeah, from our standpoint, if the committee wants, we don't have anything to discuss, but if somebody wants to come back, we're fine with it, up to
You had a
members'
notice of motion today. That's why I'm looking at you, David.
The only question I have, Mr. Chair, is what are we doing on Tuesday then?
Now, the committee will meet as a whole and discuss the two private members' businesses that we discussed last week. There now is a couple of motions that are before us or could very well be before us. So that would be the work. Also, Mr. Lukowski's motion passed last week. We have to finish the planning on that. You've heard that the clerk cannot appear because she's on medical leave until mid-July, so we'll discuss that also.
Just very quickly, Mr. Chair. So I was probably not paying attention. Have we been asked, given a deadline for suggesting witnesses for the two private members' bills?
I would like to have that discussion as to how we'll move forward with both of them, and that may very well be it. We will have to ask for an extension on Mr. Trost before the summer, if indeed we're going to go further on that study, but that's the will of the committee. So, all right. So then we will see all of us on Tuesday. All right. We are adjourned.